the Madman!
At last, it's that time. It's time for the Trump Reviews Mega Recap.
At last, it's time for Trump Reviews. Now, one of the challenges of this Trump Reviews is I did not do a Trump Reviews immediately following the balance changes. This one is going to cover both the pre-nerf and the post-nerf, and in the future I will do both a Trump Reviews, and a Trump Reviews. It turns out that the balance changes really affected a lot of stuff.
Let's start with Lesser Jasper's Spellstone. That's actually pretty efficient. The main problem with it is just that all the current decks can't really fit this card into them, and it's not quite strong enough to warrant a build around. And while you can gain the armor with
I'm gonna stop you there, Trump. So, it turns out that a lot of the Kobolds and Catacombs ratings are actually pretty big misses for me. Because of the internal synergy of the set. There is a lot of it. And this is actually 1 mana deal 4 and 1 mana deal 6 a lot of the time, which is really strong. This card, pre-nerf, was a 4-star card. Druid fell into tier 3, and Lesser Jasper Spellstone became a 3-star card, post-nerf. Druid preyed on Rizaka's Priest, which got completely nerfed, and it preyed on decks with patches in it so it could Spreading Plague them, and patches got nerfed.
Barkskin is just worse than Earthen Scales. So, 1 star. Except we've got Greedy Sprite. Some people think that there's some potential in this card, but I don't really see it. So I'm going to rate it 2 stars. I think Greedy Sprite is outclassed by both Jade Blossom and Mire Keeper, and I don't think you run Greedy Sprite.
Right on the money. Greedy Sprite was a 2-star card.
You can't.
It's used a little bit in the Spiteful Ultimate Infestation deck.
Ironwood Golem is next, and I don't think it's much better than Sen'jin's Shield Mass. I don't think the entire Recruit 4 theme is going to be good, so I'm rating it a 1-star card.
Turns out that a 4-mana 3/6 taunt is not that good by itself, but when it comes with gain 6 armor, it becomes good enough. So this was actually a 4-star card, and it did change up the classic Druid build in the Jade Druid deck. And then 3 stars, now post-nerf in the current Jade Druid tier 3 deck.
Astral Tiger is clearly meant to be part of the theme of recruiting 4-drops, but it's just not strong enough, and even though you can recruit infinite of these Astral Tigers in theory, I'm saying no to that. 1 star.
This card got out in class by Jade Idol.
Kind of a big enabler of getting a 4-drop and getting 6 armor, which is good in theory, but it's just that all the archetypes of Druid are better than this recruit 4-drop idea. Anyways, Oaken Summons, 1-star card.
The entire Oaken Summons, Ironwood Golem, Lesser Jasper Spellstone, Branching Paths package was really good design. Nothing too strong and kind of a side grade, slight upgrade. But they all ended up being like just good cards. Oaken Summons, 4-star card, ends up being a 3-star card for the same reason as all the other aforementioned Druid cards.
It is very versatile, but the versatility comes at a price that I'm not willing to pay. I think it's going to be a 2-star card.
So, Branching Paths, turns out that putting in all the card draw into your Jade Druid deck was perfectly fine. And the gaining 6 armor ends up being surprisingly good. And probably most surprising is the +1 attack ends up being really surprisingly good.
Twig of the World Tree. I think it's a meme, but I think that there will be some serious practice and testing with the card. So I rated it a 2-star card.
There was a lot of hype for this card, and I did say that I thought it was a meme, but I still thought it would see enough experimentation that it would be played. Nowhere in the expansion period was it played anywhere seriously enough to warrant the 2-star rating, so 1 star.
Ixlid Fungal Lord. I think this card is so unlikely to be successful that it's not even really going to see enough competitive experimentation. Yes, it can go insane with Twig, but Twig is already a reach. So Ixlid, I rate 1 star.
Yep, 1 star.
Grizzled Guardian. It's the big daddy of Recruit 4. It was intended to be the card that pulls together Ironwood Golem and Astral Tiger, and I just think that an 8-mana 3/5 taunt is not powerful enough to have this theme, and more importantly, I think that the other Druid archetypes are stronger than this archetype. So I rate Grizzled Guardian, and ultimately this Recruit 4 mechanic, 1 star.
So I wonder if Grizzled Guardian led me in the wrong direction. I was like, okay, there's a Recruit 4 mechanic. But no, it's actually just Grizzled Guardian, which is bad. Whereas Oaken Summons getting the Ironbark Golem was pretty good. Anyways, Grizzled Guardian 1 star.
So it certainly seems like Druid isn't getting very much good stuff.
So it turns out that Druid actually got some pretty good toys, and right on the balance point, because nothing was radically that good. Jade Druid, going into this expansion, was getting a lot of hate, so it was good that there was nothing that insane, and yet, 4 of these cards fit into Jade Druid, and still Jade Druid is only a tier 3 deck now, and only a tier 2 deck pre-patch. They did a really good job with Druid, I'd say.
Next up, we have Hunter. Starting with Candle Shot. I'm going to give this card 2 stars. You compare this with N'Zoth's First Mate, and it's not even close because N'Zoth's First Mate comes with a 1/1, and...
So, Candle Shot was actually a 2-star card pre-patch. Aggro hunters found it difficult to compete with the better types of aggro out there. However, Candle Shot has, since then, bumped itself up to a 4-star rating because it is in No Minion Hunter.
Wandering Monster. I originally thought the secret sucked. It was basically Noble Sacrifice. And yet I'm still going to rate it a 2-star card because I think it's going to be tried out in these mid-range Hunter lists purely because of Lesser Emerald Spellstone.
Good call there. It was actually pre-patch a 2-star card purely because of Lesser Emerald Spellstone. And now it's a 4-star card because Secret Hunter has gotten a lot better.
Looks weak to me, Wandering Monster into your deck, just because all of the other Hunter secrets, other than Cat Trick, are even worse.
Exactly right.
Cave Hydra. I think a 3-mana 2/4 just isn't competitive enough the turn it comes out, so I'm going to give it a 1 star.
Yeah,
sure,
1 star.
It's Houndmaster, but I think that is not a good enough reason. Flanking Strike. That is a really strong card, and will see play in mid-range Hunter, I fully expect. I'm only rating it a 4-star card, not 5 stars, just because I'm not confident in how strong mid-range Hunter will be.
So good job not rating it a 5-star card, I suppose. Pre-patch, which is when this rating was done, mid-range Hunter did not manage to survive the aggression of all the aggressive decks. Flanking Strike was a 2-star card. Now, even though Spell Hunter is a tier 2 deck, it's not in all the Spell Hunter decks, so this is only a 3-star card.
Lesser Emerald Spellstone. This is a very powerful card. Will Lesser Emerald Spellstone be good enough to convince hunters to run Cat Trick as well as something else? That's the question. And is it going to be good in a Duskbreaker, potentially Duskbreaker meta? That's certainly a question as well. And that's why I rated a 3-star card.
Yeah, this is a perfect example of pat myself on the back, I guess. Perfect reasoning. It was a 3-star card pre-patch because it was so strong that it created some archetypes which all ended up being tier 4-ish. It just got outclassed by all the aggressive things. Now though, it is a 5-star card. Now that all those aggressive tools, well, the patches and the Corridor Creeper got reined back. So even though Spell Hunter is a tier 2 deck, the Lesser Emerald Spellstone is one of those cards that's so powerful that it defines the deck, so it's a +1 star, really.
Seeping Oozling. Well, there's a lot of cool tricks you can pull with it, such as copying Death Rattle of Katharina, or even more exotic things. I just don't see that deck coming together, and believe me, I tried putting it together. So I'm going to rate the Oozling a 1-star.
Yep, that deck didn't exist.
To my
1 star.
side, a very memed about card for a hunter. People look at it and wonder, why is this card just twice as good as Animal Companion, and it costs twice as much? Now, bundling is really powerful, don't you forget it, and this could in theory cost 7. So it does have a discount for the all-spell deck. So it is worth playing towards, but currently there's not enough tools for it, so this card is not going to see play competitively. But mark my words, it's a card to look out for in probably about 8 months. That's
Okay, so the time to start looking at this card wasn't actually in 8 months, but the tools for it were around, and everyone was criticizing this as like the worst card of the set, but it ended up surprising a lot of people. Spell Hunter wasn't very powerful pre-patch, so it was tried out and was seen as like a tier 4 deck, this Spell Hunter. So 2 stars then. And Spell Hunter is a good deck now, but it got refined to the point that To My Side wasn't actually a good enough card for that deck, so it ends up to still be 2 stars. To my side is a card that is not often played in Spellhunter right now.
Crushing Walls. 7 mana AoE for a Hunter. Boy, our Hunter is going to need better spells than this in order to make that deck work. Woefully inadequate in 1 star.
In fact, on a closer review, it looks like Crushing Walls is actually making it into a few of these Spellhunter decks as a tech card, as a one-of. It's just popular enough that I'm going to call it a 2-star card.
Rock Delar, similar to my side, this is a weapon that currently doesn't have enough support to be played competitively right now, but I think 8 months down the line, in 2 expansions, that's when you're going to start seeing enough Hunter spells. So, for now, 1-star card.
2-star card, initially because people did try it out competitively, and it ended up being strong enough competitively that it was tried enough out, even though it ended up being a tier 4 deck. Rock Delar, similar to Flanking Strike, is also a sometimes card in the Spellhunter, so I'm going to rate it a 3-star card.
Kathrina Winterwisp. I'm going to give her a 3-star rating, and I'm actually going to say something that not very many people are saying. You just toss her in mid-range Hunter, and that's fine.
Kathrina Winterwisp ends up being a 2-star card, as a card that saw some experimentation pre-patch as well as post-patch after the patches changes and the corridor creepers. So it started being a little less aggressive. You can maybe try out this Kathrina value, but still ends up not being very good.
But anyways, along with Dire Maul, Hunter gets a few tricks that are going to boost the power of mid-range Hunter.
Hunter gets some Spellhunter toys, Spellhunter being the deck choice of Hunters right now. Some aggressive Hunters out there, some secret Hunters out there. But Lesser Emerald Spellstone is really carrying the archetype either way.
And here comes Mage, starting with Shifting Scroll. Shifting Scroll, 1-star for me because I don't feel like I want to go through the hoops of trying to cast the perfect spell that you get from the scroll at the right time.
Yes, indeed, after the heartbreak of Shifter Xeris, I correctly rated this a 1-star card.
Arcane Artificer. This is, in my eyes, a 3-star card. And this is one of the rare occasions where I feel like I'm just going to introduce the idea now. A new archetype can be formed out of these cards because so many cards were given support towards the big spell Mage archetype.
Wow. Brilliant call, Trump. Arcane Artificer is a 3-star card in exactly the new archetype of Big Spell Mage. Big Spell Mage was a tier 3 deck, both pre-nerf and post-nerf.
Raven Familiar, 3-star card. I'm pretty much rating all of the general Big Spell Mage cards around 3 stars because I think it's around the tier 3 level.
Wow, right on, Trump. Yep, 3 stars also, as Big Spell Mage ended up being tier 3.
Lesser Ruby Spellstone, 2 stars. Clearly meant for exactly an Elemental Mage deck, and I've played a lot of Elemental Mage. I don't think Elemental Mage is going to make it to be a tier 3 deck.
This is one of the cards that I thought was going to be bad, but I thought would see enough experimentation not be that bad to be a 1-star card, but it ended up being a 1-star card.
I think. Explosive Runes, 4 stars. This is a very exciting secret. It can be played for 0 mana with Kirin Tor Mage. And it supports the very aggressive Secret Mage archetype extremely well. Replacing Mirror Entity.
4 stars or 5 stars would both be kind of accurate ratings because it's either in a tier 2 deck or it defines this deck and is a 5-star card. I'm leaning more towards the 5-star deck definition, 5-star card definition, because it's a card that without Secret Mage would be hurting a lot more. Define Secret Mage, it's a card that really boosts the power level of Secret Mage. More than I thought. It's actually 5 stars.
Leyline Manipulator. This card gets a lot of hype as it's Yeti plus Innervates. It's an elemental to boot, and it works with Lesser Ruby Spellstone. So why am I only rating it a 3-star? Well, one, I don't think that the idea that Simulacrum combo without Quest is really that valid. I think Quest is better. Will you run this alongside it? No, I don't think you have the room. 2, I don't think Elemental Mage is going to be that strong, not really going to be a tier 3 card.
I end up thinking that this card wouldn't be as good as the hype was. This was considered by many people a top 10 card. just because it does look really, really strong. I ended up thinking that it might have some play in just a tempo deck, but it ended up that Secret Mage was the right way to build the tempo mage deck. Leyline Manipulator ends up being a 1-star card, both pre and post patch, because it never was strong enough to actually see that much competitive experimentation.
Dragon's Fury. I think this is one of the big reasons why Big Spell is good. For 5 mana, you get to clear the board. Wow. So I'm going to rate this a 3-star card. I think that it could be a tier 3 deck.
Yeah, so it turns out that rating all the Big Spell Mage cards 3 stars was absolutely correct, so...
If the deck manages to make it to tier 3,
and
or even like top tier 4.
I even agree with the asterisk I gave myself there, like, but for now, this kind of defines Spell Mage, but all of the cards
be so weak that it won't even make the Big Spell deck. So slow. 1-star card. Aluna,
yeah, 1 star.
The best, in my opinion, legendary weapon. And not just that, I think it is the best card in the set. Whew, wow. People are afraid of it drawing too many cards, and yes, you need to specifically put it into a deck that can quickly play all the cards. But fortunately, there is an archetype for that. It's Tempo Mage, it's Secret Mage.
So yeah, this card was really, really strong. It defines Secret Mage. The only reason why this card isn't a 6-star card is because Secret Mage is not that strong.
Dragon Caller Alana, I rate a 3-star. As kind of the full 3-star bundle, I have rated pretty much all the big spell mage cards 3-star.
This one is a low 3 stars, but I'm going to give it the 3-star treatment still, pre-nerf and post-nerf.
So Mage actually gets some pretty big excitement. An entirely new deck archetype, Big Spell Mage.
So yeah, Mage was pretty on point here. Big Spell Mage ended up being a deck, and Secret Mage ended up being a lot better because of Alunath and Explosive Runes. We'll stop.
Paladin, we're starting with Dry Gulch Jailer. I think this card fits only into buff Paladin, but I think it's just good enough to warrant some serious experimentation with it. So I'm going to rate it a 2-star card.
So I missed the internal synergy of this card and Call to Arms, because I just thought that if you were Call to Armsing, you would try to get better stuff. That said, it was a 2-star card pre-patch, because you could get better stuff. Now you often have Dry Gulch Jailer as a card you want to Call to Arms, because the card quality got a bit lower after you couldn't put Patches or Corridor Creeper into your deck. This is in the most popular deck at the moment, a tier 1 deck of Dude Paladin, but it's not even in all of those decks. Dude Paladin is doing a lot of experimentation. So I'm going to call it a 4-star card post-patch.
Potion of Heroism. I'm going to rate that a 4-star card. I'm not absolutely sure that it's going to fit into Murloc Paladin. I'm not entirely sure what to cut for it, but it certainly does look powerful.
Surprisingly, somewhat accurate, a little bit. So Potion of Heroism, a 1-star card pre-nerf, so I wasn't even close then. Because the meta was too fast to play this Potion of Heroism thing. As the meta slowed when Patches and Corridor Creeper got removed, Potion of Heroism rose to a 3-star card because a deck that could handle the slower meta, OTK Paladin, rose up to be a tier 3 deck.
Lesser Pearl Spellstone. I'm rating this a 2-star card. This will make, at some point during the meta, a blip before disappearing.
So it should be noted that I was pessimistic about the card. I didn't think it was good, but in a lot of these ratings, I try to rate, like, is it absolute trash? Or is it eventual trash? And in this case, I went with, it'll eventually be trash, but I think there will be enough experimentation. But I was off on the optimism there. It's actually 1-star.
Benevolent Djinn, which is also a 2-star card. It seems like you would play one with the other, and I feel like both of those cards just seem just enough intrigue.
Nope, it ends up Djinn is also 1-star card.
Unidentified Maul. Originally, I was going to, just like the last 2 cards, rate this a 1-star, but I'm going to hesitantly rate it a 2-star card. I feel like Murloc Paladin is going to try out the card, and you could flood out with enough Murlocs.
So if this went the other way around, I normally would have rated all 3 of these cards 1-stars, but this one ends up being a 5-star card, which I rated 2 stars. So I guess it's kind of a hedge in the middle. Ends up being way better to give your minions Divine Shield and +1 attack than expected when you have as much board as the Murloc Paladins and the Dude Paladins of today. Huge miss here, It ends up being a really good card.
Call to Arms. Now this is the exciting card for Paladin I see, and that's a 5-star card right there. After thinking about it some more, I realized you just put this into Murloc Paladin, and you get your 1-drops, you get your 2-drops, and that's okay. And getting Righteous Protector is also really good. 1/1 Divine Shield Taunt is strong.
So yes, this card ended up being extremely powerful. This card was in my top 10 list as well, and it's a 5-star card pre-patch, post-patch. Ends up a decent contender for a 6-star card, to be honest.
Next up, Level Up. 1-star card, I just don't see it. It's too weak, it's too slow. You're not going to have that many guys out.
It did turn out to be a 1-star card pre-patch, and I did rate it correctly given the meta. Things were too fast for Level Up. But it turns out that now you can get enough guys. They're just getting guys left and right, and the meta is slow enough that you can actually play a copy of Level Up in these decks sometimes. Some people are playing 0 Level Up, some people are playing 2 Level Up. I'm gonna give it a 4-star card. Let me downgrade that to 3 stars. It's on the decline, I'm being told, of usage in this Dude Paladin deck.
Crystal Lion, which I rate a 1-star. So while you could get a 1-mana 5/5 Divine Shield on turn 6, along with your Stand into Darkness, I just feel like the entire thing is not worth it.
This card, on the other hand, is fast enough and good enough, way better than Level Up. It was a 1-star card pre-patch, didn't even see enough experimentation, but after the changes, now it's a 5-star card. This is one of the shocking change and effects of the patch that I didn't actually anticipate either, which is why I didn't do a Trump reviews, because when certain aggro options step back, the second best aggro option steps forward, which ends up being Silverhand Recruits. Shocking.
Valanir. So I'm going to rate it a 3-star card for both the potential of Buff Paladin, which I don't think is going to be that strong a deck, but also because of the gul'dan possibility, which I also don't think is going to be that strong a deck. But the card just has 2 horses running for it, and I'm going to semi-bet on one of those horses.
So the interesting thing is I bet on a control deck running the Valanir, but it ended up being an aggro deck running it. This was a 3-star card pre-patch, as it was a tech option in aggro Paladin, one of the top decks at the time. And it was a legitimate tech option for a very, very long time. Nowadays, it's considered too slow and has fallen off into a 1-star. One of the reasons why it actually fell off a bit is because people ran Spellbreaker a lot more post-patch, and Valanir getting Spellbroken is really bad.
Linessa Sunsorrow is also a card that I admit that I am going to give a bit of a biased rating towards. I'm going to bet on Linessa potentially being in some sort of mid-range Paladin deck, running exactly 6 copies of buffs. And no, I don't think Quest Paladin is going to work. So anyways, Linessa, 3 stars.
I did try out the deck personally quite a bit with the Linessa, and she just wasn't good enough pre-patch because things were too fast. So she was a 1-star card pre-patch. But post-patch, she is actually featured in quite a lot of OTK Paladin decks running Spike Ridge Steed and Potion of Heroism, and is now a 3-star card.
So Paladin gets a bunch of toys for Buff Paladin, gets some anti-aggro tools for Control Paladin, and Linessa is a really interesting legendary which could change how much that the mid-range and even the Control Paladins want to buff.
So the short of it is Paladin got Call to Arms, which is absolutely ridiculous, and Unidentified Maul, which is also really strong. Dragulch Jailer level up Crystal Lion, or Crystal Lion now really good as well, and Dragulch Jailer level up, seeing some play.
Next up, we've got Priest. Psionic Probe, I'm going to rate 2 stars. I think it will fall off in favor, but I think Raza Priest will try it out.
So, turns out to be a right prediction. It fell out of favor in Raza Priest, and they did try it out, but not enough numbers to justify 2 stars. It was a 1-star card.
Twilight Acolyte. 5 stars. This card is better Aldor Peacekeeper for a Dragon Priest deck.
So yeah, this card actually did see play pre-patch in some Raza decks, the Dragon variant. It was that good. Of course, it was in all the Dragon Priests as well. And the interesting thing is now post-patch there are two different types of dragon priests. There's one with the combo dragons, and there's actually a control priest deck which has dragons, both of which have Twilight Acolyte. Definite 5-star card.
What a great card.
Oh, also in Spiteful Priest.
Gilded Gargoyle. This card is really slow as a 3-mana 2/2, but I'm going to give a very optimistic rating of 2 stars to this. It's between a 1-star and a 2-star for me, but I think that Raza Priest just might try him out.
So yeah, this one is actually a 2-star card pre-patch. Right on the money that it was a card that was tried out in Raza Priest, but found out to not be good enough. It actually saw play in one of the Raza Priests brought to the Hearthstone World Championship, though, I believe. In that effect, it's like a really strong 2 card. Might have even been a 3. Nowadays, it's a 1-star card, though, post-patch after Raza got nerfed.
Unidentified Elixir. That's a 1-star card for me.
Yeah, 1-star card. It turns out that Zoo Priest didn't exist. Wait, actually, Zoo Priest did exist, but it turns out that that was basically Spiteful Summoner Priest, which didn't want to run spells.
Twilight's Call. I'm going to rate that a 2-star card. I don't ultimately see the Death Rattle Priest deck taking off, but there is the potential for Awaken the Makers and N'Zoth.
Honorable mention on Twilight's Call, involved in a OTK Priest deck with Corrupted Healbot, where you bring them back, and then you embrace the darkness, and then you kill them in 1 turn, but that's a meme deck, and it actually is just a 1-star card.
Dragon Soul, the Priest Legendary Weapon, I'm rating 1 star because it just is too slow to get going.
Many people didn't think that Dragon Soul would suck, but I saw through the ploy and saw it as what it is. It's a 3-mana do nothing, so 1-star card.
Duskbreaker, widely hyped as perhaps the best card in the set. This is a 5-star card for me. Excavated Evil was 5 mana. This card, you get a 1 mana discount on that, and you get a 3/3. And it's a dragon, so all of your other Dragon Matters cards are even better. Really insane card.
Yep, it was an insane card. It is an insane card. It's run across many types of priests, both pre-patch and post-patch. 5-star card.
Temporis, 1-star card. I think this is a pure meme card.
Yep, 1-star meme.
Psychic Scream. Wow, 5-star card. I think this is really top-notch removal. Gets around Death Rattles. Absolute blowout against Token Druid when they cast Living Mana. I do think it's only exactly a 1 copy of in Raza Priest.
Note that I put this as a 5-star card, even though I thought it would only see play in Raza Priest as a 1 copy of, because obviously it's Raza Priest. And that was completely right. This card pretty much saw play in just Raza Priest pre-patch, and it was a 5-star card because it was very strong in that deck. Now, post-patch, this card isn't actually seeing that much play because even though Control Priest exists, it's kind of a mid-range tempo deck with dragons, mid-control-ish type of deck. It is run in Big, but Big Priest is a tier 3 deck, so Psychic Scream has thus fallen to a 3-star card post-patch.
Lesser Diamond Spellstone is a card that I see replacing Free from Amber in a Big Priest deck, and perhaps a 1-of in that deck. So for that reason, I'm going to rate it a 3-star card as kind of a card that might make it into Big Priest.
So this card did make it into Big Priest. Pre-patch, it was a 2-star card because Big Priest wasn't as strong. Post-patch, as Big Priest got better, came a 3-star card.
So Priest is a pretty big winner for this expansion, getting the dragon synergy with such strong cards such as Duskbreaker and Twilight Acolyte, and even getting a toy for Raza Priest and Psychic Scream.
Priest ended up getting the big Duskbreaker and the Twilight Acolyte, which is seen across a lot of decks now, and that's been good for Priest.
The Kingsbane. After building some decks, I thought, hey, this might actually work out in Miracle. Got a lot better when I saw the Cavern Shiny Finder. So Kingsbane and Cavern Shiny Finder, I'm going to rate both cards 3 stars.
So that's actually accurate. Kingsbane Rogue, I'm qualifying as a tier 4 deck, but Kingsbane is a card that defines that deck, so it gets like a +1 star. It's the card that makes the entire deck work. So it's a 3-star deck, both pre-patch and post-patch. It was a tier 4 deck in both.
Cavern Shiny Finder, 3 star. You put this card into the same deck as Kingsbane.
So yeah, Cavern Shiny Finder also defines the Kingsbane deck, so I'm willing to rate it 3 stars. When you look at the win rate of this card, of Kingsbane decks overall, it's got one of the lowest win rates out there across the ladder.
Every single rogue secret, I'm actually going to rate 2 stars. So starting with Sudden Betrayal, 2 stars. I think the Sudden Betrayal is pretty decent.
So Sudden Betrayal ends up being a 1 star. It didn't see enough experimentation to warrant the 2 stars.
Evasion, this is my most hesitant of all of the secrets to give 2 stars. Because you'd have to time the evasion perfectly, but there are some matchups where the evasion can be really good, such as against a very wide board.
So Evasion, on the other hand, is actually one of the cards that pre-patch was a 2-star card. It did see enough experimentation across a lot of different rogue archetypes to stop the aggro. Falls off post-patch to not actually see any experimentation to a 1-star.
And we've got Cheat Death, which I'm also rating 2 stars.
And yeah, Cheat Death also gets the pre-patch 2-star treatment because it was a card that was experimented with just enough to put it into the 2-star category. It was used with Cold Light Oracles, it was used with Gul'dan Auctioneers, it was used across a variety of different decks to experiment with.
Sonya Shadow Dancer, I'm rating a 3-star card. I looked back at the history of Tempo Rogue, and at one point Shadowcaster was in that deck, and that's a 5-mana 4/4. Sonya Shadow Dancer does much the same thing, except even bigger upside, because you can get multiple things back into your hand.
So Shadow Dancer is an interesting card. It was actually a 3-star card in Tempo Rogue as a tech card that Tempo Rogue could put in, and this is pretty much the deck that I mainly thought I'd see her as a sometimes tech card in. So right on the money there. Now post-patch though, she's played for a completely different reason. Quest Rogue is a deck that does use Sonya Shadow Dancer in order to replay many copies of the same minion. So, Sonya, you found your new home. Congratulations.
Kobold Illusionist. I'm not a big enough dreamer to think that Illusionist is good. The biggest benefit is going to be with Death Rattle cards, and that's mainly Jade with the Stalker and the Aya, but I just don't see that version working. So, 1-star card Illusionist.
Yep, 1-star Illusion.
Valdorai's Strider. I think that this card is extremely interesting. So Valdorai's Strider gets a 4-star from me for potentially pushing, being a card that defines the Miracle Rogue, and potentially Miracle Rogue becomes quite a bit better with this card.
So Valdorai's Strider ends up indeed defining Miracle Rogue. However, pre-patch Miracle Rogue wasn't fast enough. There were all sorts of aggressive decks that used patches to beat it down before it could be good, and Miracle Rogue was just trash. So it was a 2-star card. But now, post-patch, with the meta slowed down a little bit, Miracle Rogue is a tier 3 deck, and Valdorai's Strider does define the deck. Willing to call it a 4-star card because of it.
Elven Minstrel. This is one of the power cards that Rogue is getting here, and I'm giving it a 5-star rating. Very shocked that this card was printed when Tempo Rogue was so strong.
Elven Minstrel helped take Tempo Rogue to be the best deck, well, one of the best decks of the pre-patch meta, and was a 5-star card. And some decks did even run Counterfeit Coin in order to get the Elven Minstrel out. These days, with Tempo Rogue out and dead, this card is simply used as a very good card in Miracle Rogue. It is still played in every Rogue deck for whatever that matters. So 4-star card.
And finally, Lesser Onyx Spellstone is a card designed for this Death Rattle Rogue, which I think is simply getting outclassed by Tempo Rogue. So I rate the Spellstone a 1-star.
Yeah, this Spellstone sucked. 1-star.
We're getting some pretty nifty toys. I think the legendary weapon is pretty fun. The fact that you can bring it back is really cool. And they're actually getting a few options for Tempo Rogue, as well as just a really strong card for Tempo Rogue. And not just that, a really strong 2 cards for Miracle Rogue.
Oh yeah. Why do secrets have to be so bad? Like, overall.
So for Shaman, we'll start with Unstable Evolution. I'm going to rate that card 2. Originally, I'm going to go ahead and spoil the rest of the Shaman ratings here. I was going to rate every single Shaman card a 1-star, but then I realized, hey, some people actually like playing Shaman, and for some reason, they'll probably test out 2 of the better cards here. I'm not going to make that big a mistake this time around by ranking a whole class just 1-star, because Shaman is last place here.
Good call, Trump. So I blanket rated everything a 1-star, except 2 of the cards, I believe. And this was one of the cards I rated 2-star, and it was actually accurately rated 2 stars. Unstable Evolution sees some play in Evolve Shaman.
Murmuring Elemental, on the other hand, I think will be weak enough and found out so fast in the first week that people will not be trying that out in the future. So I'm going to rate that a 1-star card.
Correction to my previous statement, it actually ends up that a few of these in the post-meta, Murmuring Elemental is tried out in some of the Jade decks now that the meta has gotten a little bit slower post-patch, so 2-star card.
Kobold Hermits, Primal Talismans, and Windshear Stormcaller. I'm blanketing those all at 1 star.
Yep, I mean, all 3 of those are 1
stars. So
stars.
much work to summon Alakir, and those 3 cards are all weak individually. Kobold Hermit is just too weak. Primal Talismans is just too weak, and Windshear Stormcaller is decent, but the requirement is just too high to actually pull that off.
All Totem Shaman.
Crushing Hand, I'm rating a 1-star because I just don't see Control Shaman as being high enough value in this meta. So for that same reason, I'm rating Healing Rain a 1-star card. This is one of the cards that's actually strong, but in this meta, I don't see Control Shaman being a thing.
So after the meta slowed down a bit, Healing Rain actually saw play in this Jade Shaman deck. Ends up being a 2-star card.
6 mana, 7/7. Clearly a fit for the Shaman Elemental deck, and for that reason, I'm going to rate it only a 2-star card. Because I just think Elemental Shaman is nowhere near tier 3 status.
So Grumble was tried out a little bit pre-patch as well, enough to rate it a 2-star card, but then got discarded because it was too slow and it was a Shaman deck, and Shamans famously suck. Post-patch, as the meta slowed down a bit, Grumble World Shaker became a staple in Jade decks, a solid tier 4 deck, and is a 2-star card. At some point, though, look forward to Grumble World Shaker actually being good, when Shamans get good cards, probably.
Lesser Sapphire Spellstone. Big Priest is better, Big Druid is better. Why are we trying for the Big Shaman thing? I just don't think it'll work out, so Lesser Sapphire Spellstone gets a 1 for me.
Indeed, the big other
and
decks were better,
the
1-star.
Rune Spear, quite possibly the most laughable legendary weapon out of all of them. The Shaman spells just simply aren't good enough to warrant playing this weapon. 1-star.
If I could rate a card 0 stars, I would have done it on this one, but 1-star.
Good when not targeted, to be specific. Ugh, not looking good for Shaman, I gotta say. So last expansion, they got the free Shaman package. This expansion, they're getting the Summon Alakir with your Totems package. But boy, all those Totem cards are weak. And they got some Control Shaman tools, but Control Shaman is nowhere near the level that it needs to be to compete.
For those of you who weren't around a year ago, Shaman was all over the place. Mid-range Shaman is the only tier 1 deck. So as a response, Blizzard has been printing some really bad Shaman cards.
Warlock
Next expansion, we'll see some good Shaman cards, probably.
A massive, insanely overpowered card, especially for 1 mana. Absolutely insane. Gonna see play in Zoo. Gonna see play in Warlock because of that Amethyst Spellstone. And even if it didn't have the Amethyst Spellstone, we'd probably see play anyway, so 5 stars. Wow, what a...
Yeah, wow, what a strong card, 5 stars. In Control Shaman, or not Shaman. Control Shaman actually got this card. Shaman should have gotten this card. No, it shouldn't have, it's not in their flavor. Anyways, this card's really good in Control Warlock and Zoo.
Dark Pact. That's a really interesting card that I just couldn't find a use for, but 8 healing is a lot for 1 mana. That's like 3 mana worth of healing. I was just about to rate this 1-star, and I actually have it on my ratings list at 1-star, but you know, it's one of those cards that I'm going to think that the community is going to be so enthralled by that they'll actually try to play with it, and it'll see some amount of competitive play. Just enough to, I guess, give it a 2-star rating. I compare it to Sacrificial Pact. No one was running Sacrificial Pact, and that was just heal 5 and destroy a demon. This one, you can aim at friendly death rattles, such as eggs. The thing is, Zoo really doesn't need to kill their own
eggs.
And I really don't think that the Possessed Lackey is good enough to kill. I'm actually going to downgrade the rating. I talked myself out of it when comparing it with Sacrificial Pact, and I realized why I'd set this actually at 1-star. So we're going with 1-star.
Oh, I was like, I had it on my sheet here. It's like, it's a 1-star. Wait, did I misrecord it? No, I did in fact rate it a 1-star. Like, after the 2, we downgraded it to a 1. I even specifically said, is it good enough to cast Unpossessed Lackey? No, probably not. It turns out it's pretty good to cast on Possessed Lackey, but not only that, it's really good to cast on a certain card that I also probably didn't rate 5 stars. Dark Pact ends up being incredible, 5 stars, running the Q block version. It ends up being that I severely underestimated Possessed Lackey, and that made me underestimate Dark Pact.
The main problem is it interferes with Keleseth, and I think Keleseth is still too good for Zoo to replace it with Homunculus, so that means this card only goes into Control Warlock. Control Warlock is currently a tier 4 deck, and yet I am going to rate this Vulgar Homunculus 4 stars, because I think with the total amount of tools that Control Warlock is getting here, it has a decent chance of rising to tier 2.
Worth mentioning that Control Warlock was a deck that was tier 4 going into this. So it ended climbing to tier 1 after all. Vulgar Homunculus I thought would make it there, but that's because I completely didn't see the reason why Control Warlock would be as powerful as it is now, which is Possessed Lackey. So Vulgar Homunculus, being a demon, therefore sees no play in that deck, since you don't want the demon tag of Vulgar Homunculus to be summoned by Possessed Lackey. However, it did see some play in Zoo. Pre-patch, it was a 3-star card in Zoo because there would be enough tools with your patches and with your Corridor Creeper and with your Bone Mare to actually make that a cohesive deck. Currently, though, post-patch, even though Zoo is still a tier 2 deck, you see more of the Keleseth version being run. So Vulgar Homunculus kind of gets cut from that. So Vulgar Homunculus, pre-patch 3 stars, post-patch 2 stars.
Hooked Reaver. Whoa. 4 mana, potential 7/7 as long as you're 15 health or lower. 5-star card. I think that the condition, being at 15 or less health, is simple enough to achieve.
So clearly I missed the Possessed Lackey here. Demon Tag is a really big disadvantage to anything right now that isn't Voidlord. Hooked Reaver would be a good card, I think, if it didn't have the Demon Tag. Unfortunately, it is a thing, so Hooked Reaver never really saw play. It turns out to be a 1-star card.
Lesser Amethyst Spellstone. This is one of the spellstones I'm most excited for, and I'm going to rate it a 4-star card. It's a major thing that Control Warlock was looking for, the ability to regain health. And 4 mana to basically kill a minion, since it'll deal a very strong amount of damage to one.
Lesser Amethyst Spellstone ends up being a really insane card. The only reason why I rated it a 4-star card is because I didn't think Control Warlock would necessarily rise up to be that powerful, to be the tier 1 deck it is now. Reminder, before this review, it was a tier 4 deck. Lesser Amethyst Spellstone, 5-star card.
Cataclysm. This card, single-handedly, I think, makes the Quest Lakari Sacrifice look so much better and potentially viable, and a deck that I'm going to try immediately, because I've always liked Lakari Sacrifice. So Cataclysm, I rate 4 stars.
It was not a real deck. You know, back in the day, I also rated the Warlock Quest 5 stars. I like the value. When I started this review, I said something along the lines of, you have to be really optimistic when rating the cards, and I was optimistic in seeing this Cataclysm thing, because you could get your entire... Every single turn, you would just get 2/3/2s, but it turns out that it's too slow because the aggressive decks pre-patch would just beat your face in. The control decks post-patch have greater value than it. It just went horribly wrong. 1-star card.
Possessed Lackey, I'm rating 1 star. Oh man, a 5-mana 2/2 is just way too slow. I don't think the combo of the Dark Pact is really real here, and I don't think the combo of Sacrificial Pact is worth it either.
I'm not entirely sure how I missed the optimistic point of view of running a deck with Possessed Lackey and Voidlord. I'm almost certain I did try it out in my deck testing. See, this is what you have to do when you're reviewing the cards. You have to look at the really optimistic situation. It's harder to see when the 2 cards are in the same set together because you haven't had experience facing off against the Voidlord yet. These days, this card is reading as 5-mana 2/2 Death Rattle, summon a Voidlord, or summon a Doomguard. And of course that's insane. I just didn't have the vision of seeing a Control Warlock deck running those cards. Partly because I looked at a Vulgar Homunculus and Hooked Reaver, and I was like, of course I'm going to put those in my Control Warlock deck. So how can I actually only get Voidlord off of it? Why would I ever put Doomguard into my Control Warlock deck? That's ridiculous. But Kobolds and Catacombs introduced a brand new way of thinking with this specific card. This is possibly the strongest card in Kobolds and Catacombs, in fact. So ended up being a big 5-star card. You get your Void Lord, you get your Doom Guard. It's really good, and it's also caused a lot of Spellbreakers to enter the meta because of the pure strength of this card.
Might I interest you instead for Skull of the Minari, the Warlock legendary weapon? I am going to be a bit of a dreamer here and rate it a 3-star card, because I do see some variant of Warlock where they put in 2 Void Lords and they put in Skull of the Minari. I'm really looking forward to trying that deck out too.
Oh, so close, Trump, so close. How can I mention Skull of the Minari and not Void Lord? Probably because with the Skull of the Minari, you can put other demons into your deck. Now, as a reminder, most people thought this card absolutely sucked. I said I was a dreamer, and I rated this higher than most people, I think. Anyways, I didn't dream big enough. It's also a 5-star card. And I think very few people envisioned the Control Warlock with the Doom Guard and the Void Lord in it, and you can pull out both the Skull and Minari and instantly charge up your Doom Guard.
Rin the First Disciple. Looks like just a meme. Dumping that much mana into a ritual seems insane, but yet I'm going to rate it a 2-star card. And the reason I'm going to do that is because I think that there is some metagame that could pop up where you do have the time to complete this ritual, and then killing your opponent's deck in a Control v Control matchup is really good.
That metagame happened. Pre-patch, 3-star card because Cube Warlock was better since Control Warlock was weaker. You couldn't kill Raza Priest, so you ran Cube Warlock over Control Warlock almost all the time. But post-patch, 5-star card because this is the card that wins you the game in the Tier 1 battle of Control Warlocks.
And finally, last but not least, Void Lord. This card looked kind of lame-ish when it was first revealed compared to Obsidian Statue, and it was like, eh. But add up the stats on this, it's a 6/18, all of which is taunt for 9 mana, and certainly you can't add the death rattles like that.
Please rate it high, please rate it high.
The Void Walkers into the 3, but this card's mostly really strong because Gul'dan brings it back, and as has been evidenced in the past by N'Zoth bringing back cards such as Infested Tauren, bringing back taunts is really, really good, and bringing back a taunt that costs that much is really, really good. But Void Lord is not only good because it might just be good by default, but because it has so much synergy with cards like Skull of the Minari, and also my pet favorite Master O card. Because of all these possibilities, I'm rating.
You missed Possessed Lackey in there too.
4-star. And I actually think if Control Warlock becomes a major deck, Void Lord is going to be a part of it. So boy is Control Warlock getting the hookup.
Well, understatement of the century. It turns out that Void Lord, well, Control Warlock was a thing, and Void Lord is a major part of it. Also, a major part of it is Possessed Lackey, Skull of the Minari if you're going Cube Warlock, Rhythm First Disciple if you're going the Control Warlock path, Lesser Amethyst, Spellstone, Kobold Librarian, also insane in both of those decks, as well as Dark Pact. So, Control Warlock, boy did they give Control Warlock everything in this expansion, and Control Warlock / Cube Warlock, both Tier 1 decks, both pre and post patch. Well, Control Warlock more of a Tier 3 deck, pre-patch.
And finally, last and possibly least, Warrior. Starting with Dry Whisker Armor, it is like Antique Killbot, but only costs 2. The thing is, in this tempo metagame, I don't think the armor up speed bump is that strong. I'm hemming and hawing quite a bit on whether or not I'm going to rate armor 2 or 3 stars, and I'm going to go with 2 stars. As a note to myself in the future when I review this, if Control Warrior ended up being like a very select few people managed to hit top legend with it, I'll probably call it a Tier 3 deck.
Oh, thanks for the note into the future. I don't believe anyone is actually hitting top legend with Warrior, pre or post patch. I've actually just received word that there are quite a few people who are running Control Warrior, which do include this card, and they did hit top legend. Very select few, but they did. Probably not as many as I had said in my note to myself, so I'm going to say 2-star card.
So next up is Bladed Gauntlet, a weapon that doesn't replace Fiery War Axe, but is more of a late game weapon. I'm rating this a 2-star card because I do see it as potentially 2 shield slams, and certainly worth experimentation with, but I do also see it as Gorehowl. I don't really see it working out. I don't see it as an insane enough card to bring Control Warrior back.
This one was a
Kobold
1-star
Barbarian,
card.
Boy, does this card suck. 1 star. You're only getting the beginning attack off, and it's just worse than Ogre Brute, since Ogre Brute has a higher...
Boy, does this card suck, 1 star.
What you want it to aim. This one's just completely random. Reckless Flurry. I'm rating this one 1 star. I don't really see this being better than the Whirlwind, Sleep with the Fishes, or the Ravaging Ghouls, Sleep with the Fishes, or the Blood Razor, Sleep with the Fishes.
Outclassed by Sleep with the Fishes, 1 star.
AoE is strong enough. For Gemstead Golem, that's a really efficient stat line for 6 mana. 14 mana worth of stats, along with Taunt, and like probably one of the best division of stats I've ever seen. 5/9 with Taunt, that's so big. This is a card that pushes a Control Warrior agenda. However, just because I think Control Warrior is that weak, I am rating this card a 2-star card nonetheless.
This card was tried out in Control Warrior by some of the leading warrior experts such as Fibonacci, but it was cut, and unfortunately, it's not really tried out on the mainstream level enough to justify giving it 2 stars. It's really close to 2 stars, though. It's 1 star, though.
Unidentified Shield. So many of the possibilities are bad. I'm rating it 1 star.
This card was tried out a bit in the Control Warriors pre-patch in a greater number, and did deserve a 2-star rating. Post-patch, it fell out of use and is now 1 star.
Gather Your Party. I actually last minute revised my rating of this from 1 to 2 stars. So the reason is this is a pretty novel concept. Big Warrior, it's going to be tried for sure.
Good news, people did try this in big enough numbers and then realized it sucked. So exactly the right rating of 2 stars. Big Warrior was an archetype that was tried out and discarded after some amount of experimentation.
Lesser Mithril Spellstone. I think there just aren't enough weapons really to evolve this thing to the big and greater Spellstone. So I'm rating this a 1-star card.
Did see a little bit of play pre-patch while you still had patches in the Pirate Warrior deck. So 2-star pre-patch, 1-star post-patch.
Geosculptor, yep. Is value if you can actually play it while you have armor. But my main problem is I don't see running Bring It On just for a Geosculptor. Yep, I don't really see Control Warrior, and I see this card as kind of another rot face. 1 star for me.
Yep, this one did not see enough play to justify giving it even 2 stars, so it was a 1-star card.
And finally, the Warrior Legendary Weapon. Woe Cleaver. Certainly, there's a lot of potential value in here if you stuff your deck with 8 mana and above minions. I don't think that Recruit Warrior is good enough on a personal level, but I do think the card is interesting enough, and the Big Warrior idea is interesting enough that there will be some competitive attempts at it before it fizzles out. So, for that reason, I'm rating it a 2-star.
That was exactly right. It is a 2-star card because there's just some Warrior diehard people who love the Warrior class and take this even on a competitive level to just enough played that it exists as a deck that does poorly as a tier 4 deck.
So Warrior is getting some Control Warrior tools. I just don't quite think it's good enough to justify the Control Warrior archetype yet. What they lack, again, is early game removal in the form of something traditional like Fiery War Axe, or more card draw.
The loss of Fire War Axe has hit Control Warriors really hard, and all of these fancy gizmos are not enough to pull Warrior out of the dumpster. But now you have different dumpster. You have Dumpster Big Warrior, kinda Dumpster Control Warrior. You have Dumpster Pirate Warrior. So choose your flavor of Warrior to hit rank 25 with.
And time for the neutral cards. There's a lot of unplayable stuff here, but there's also some game changers. Starting with Wax Elemental. This thing is basically Mage's mirror image, or it's the neutral shield bearer. Either way you think of it, it's just not strong enough. 1 star.
Oh yes, 1-star pre-patch, but side note, post-patch, this card is run in Quest Rogue and earns a 2-star rating because of it.
Gravel Snout Knight. Turns out that a 1-mana 2/3 is pretty good, but if you're summoning a 1 cost for the opponent and he has 2 attack, then your Gravel Snout Knight becomes a 1-mana 2/1, and that's pretty bad. So 1 star.
Absolute trash.
Feral Gibber. It's a 1-mana 1/1. 1 star.
Hilarious, but trash.
Dire Mole. It's a 1 mana 1/3. 5 stars! Well, it's a beast, and that is the card that Hunter has been looking for. Something to play with Alley Cat. Druid can also play that and then play a Mark of Yasharaj. Hunter can Crackling Razor Maul this thing for potentially a 4/3 on turn 2, attacking.
I actually put Dire Mole in my top 10 list of cards. And now that we've played a bit of Kobolds and Catacombs, we can see that some of the cards that I severely missed on are actually the ones that should be in the top 10. Dire Mole ended up being a 4-star card pre-patch. It was run in Hunter. And more importantly, it was run in Token Druid. Token Druid was a keyed tier 2 deck. Now though, Token Druid losing patches was a big change, and Hunter turns out to not be as powerful. Fallen to a low 3-star card post-patch.
Scorpomatic, 1-star card, combines with Alder Peace.
1 star.
But bah.
So here, it seems like in the original video, Jens forgot to put in Plated Beetle into the video. I'm pretty sure I reviewed it, right? Surely I did. But I did originally intend to rate Plated Beetle a 1-star card as something that wasn't going to really be that much of it wasn't enough of an upgrade. However, it ended up being a 3-star card, pre-patch and post-patch, as a tech card. You see the Plated Beetle sometimes across quite a number of control decks, an interesting defensive tech card.
Zola the Gorgon. My review card, and I think this time around, a solid, kind of techie choice. So I'm going to give her a 3-star card. I see her as a sometimes card in Kazakhis decks.
Zola the Gorgon ended up being a really cool card, in that it wasn't really in any particular deck, but you see her in quite a lot of different decks. 2-star card pre-patch because people experimented her throughout. Now Zola the Gorgon, post-patch, is in actually a very wide variety of decks, enough to rate it a 3-star card even though none of the decks are really that popular. Including but not limited to apparently some Spiteful Druid, some Control Mage, some Control Paladin, some Control Warlock, but definitely Quest Rogue.
Void Ripper. It's Confuse on a 3/3. And I think that just might be good enough for decks like Token Druid, which have a bunch of high health, low attack minions. So for that reason, I'll give him a 2-star.
Too optimistic, it was a 1-star.
That card as warranting either very light tech or at least some mana science.
This just in, hot off the presses, and this is an extremely new development. I'm bumping Void Ripper up to a 2-star card post-patch because apparently it's being used in this OTK Priest deck. Plays around Skulking Geist.
Toothy Chest. It's very flavorful, but it's also a 3 mana 0/4. And boy, is a 3 mana 0/4 bad. 1-star.
Yep.
Stone Skin Basilisk. Interesting to combine Divine Shield and Poisonous, but that's a 3 mana 1/1 Divine Shield. Boy, is that bad when you're...
Worth mentioning, this was one of the best cards in Arena, but 1-star constructed.
Could be bad against 2 Fireflies. So, 1-star. Shrieking Shroom. And it's just too vulnerable, and the value it gains isn't quite enough.
This has carried me to a few wins in Arena, but in constructed 1-star.
So 1-star. Sewer Crawler. A much better evolve target because both targets are 3 cost. Pantry Spider didn't see any play though, any real play. So 1-star on this
1-star there.
Rummaging Kobold. After finally being able to see all the weapons in the set, none are that good to warrant a rummage over 2 slow. 1-star.
And a big surprise, Rummaging Kobold was a 1-star pre-patch, but post-patch, 2 stars, because it is run in Shaman in order to get your Jade Claws back.
Lone Champion. 2 stars on this one as a card that will be tested out and probably be found inferior to Tar Creeper.
Yep, pretty much that. Arena Champion also, but Lone Champion is not good enough in constructed, didn't even see enough play to warrant the 2-star optimism. So it's just a 1-star card.
Kobold Apprentice. And it's pretty much the same painfulness as Arcane Missiles, and it comes on a 2/1 body, which just isn't strong enough, so 1-star.
1-star.
Fungal Enchanter. This card's a major improvement. Side grade, but I think side grade with an improvement on Earthen Ring Farseer. So for the same reason why Zoo didn't put an Earthen Ring Farseer, I suppose I'll have to give this card a 2-star.
I was a little bit optimistic. I did think that this card was statted aggressively enough that it could have seen some play. And I still think it has potential in the future, especially as the card pool shrinks. 1-star.
Dragon Slayer. It's a 3-mana 4/3 Dragon Hate card, and I think that there are just enough of those Cobalt Scalebanes out there that this card is already going to be extremely impactful. Dragons are coming back for priests, so this has double duty to add in. I think it's going to be a very significant tech card, and usually tech cards are rated as 3, but I think this one is going to be so significant, so I'm going to rate this one a 4-star.
So while it does slay the Cobalt Scalebane and it slays a bunch of the dragons such as Draconid Operative, this card didn't end up seeing any major tech play. While this card almost fits into the tech card category, it's just not really used as a tech card that often, and it's only really in that Zoo Warlock where you sometimes play it, you sometimes don't. I'm going to round it up to a 3-star card in the post-patch.
Boisterous Bar is a far worse fungal enchanter, and for that reason I'm going to give it 1 star.
That one sucks,
yes,
the 1 star.
Pre-heal because it can give health to things that are already at full health, but just too weak compared to Shattered Sun Cleric. The Darkness, very cool flavor, one of my favorite flavors of the set, and I'm rating it 2 stars. It's definitely a tech option against Raza Priest. You play that on turn 4, they can't play their turn 5 Raza since their deck is full of 3 candles.
Interestingly enough, the Darkness gets a 2-star rating pre-patch exactly for the reason that it was often used. Well, not often. It was rarely used enough so that it hit the radar as a 2-star as a tech against Raza. After the patch, it was a 1-star card.
Snarky Devil, 1-star card. It's like Direwolf Alpha, but you paid 2 extra mana.
Yeah, snarky, sneaky
it's like
1.
Raid Leader, but Raid Leader is basically like Direwolf Alpha, except you paid 1 extra mana. Shroom Brewer, only really Control Warlock needed this neutral healing, and they've got Amethyst Spellstone now, so 1 star for
Actually decent stats, but outclassed by Amethyst. 1 star.
1 star, it's a 4-mana 3/3.
Well, 4-mana 3/3, 1 star.
For these supposed Paladin buff decks. Kobold Monk, 1 star.
All 4-mana 3/6, 1 star.
And protects yourself. It's very similar in use to Mindbreaker, and Mindbreaker didn't really get any traction. Hoarding Dragon. Terrible, terrible things can happen to you with coins. So 1 star.
Yep, 1 star Hoarding
Ebon
Dragon.
Dragonsmith. There just don't seem to be that many weapons that you'd want to discount, or there's not really consistent enough weapon usage. So 1 star.
Lol, this one.
Cursed Disciple. Turns out you're paying 1 extra mana for an additional Magma Rager, which is kind of a good deal, but just too slow in general. So 1 star card.
Cursed Disciple does define the Quest Druid deck, but I don't even consider Quest Druid a tier 4 deck. But it does see enough play that I will give it a 2-star rating both pre and post patch.
Trog Gloom Eater. Quite a few of these cards, you can just look at the stat line and be like, this had better be an amazing ability. This is not enough of an amazing ability, so 1 star.
1 star, but kind of an arena champ.
Guild Recruiter. Turns out that there weren't enough cards in the set to warrant recruiting 4 cost or lower cards. So 1 star for this one.
1 star there.
Green Jelly. It's like Hogger. Hogger really wasn't anywhere near contention.
It's another arena champion.
Badly compared to Sludge Belcher. 1 star for this
1 star.
Furbolg Mossbinder. Boy, is that a bad card. 1 star.
1 star there.
Fungal Mancer. It's no Bone Mare. You're very optimistic if you think you can consistently get a board state where you have 2 extra minions on your opponent when it's your turn. So 1 star.
So here's the interesting thing when I said it's no Bone Mare. After Bone Mare got nerfed, so pre-patch it was a 1-star card. After Bone Mare got nerfed, Fungal Mancer started seeing play in a pretty wide variety of decks. Zoo, even the Guy Paladin deck sometimes. Enough that it is now a 3-star card.
Corrosive Sludge. Seems like you would just use the 2-mana 3/2 or the 3-mana 3/3 with the armor. So 1 star.
1 star there.
Carnivorous Cube. Just due to the sheer amount of value that you can get for this one, I'm going to give this 2 stars. I personally don't think it'll work out, but there is a lot of value potential here by eating a death rattle, eating something about to die. I think it will be experimented with and then found wanting.
Well, it turns out it was experimented with and it was really good. Because it turns out that eating Voidlord and then getting 2 copies of Voidlord is really good. Especially then, since you can then N'Zoth and then get 3 more Voidlords off of your cube plus your Voidlord original. But what's perhaps the biggest miss here is the fact that you combine so many of the new Kobolds and Catacombs cards together into a sick deck. It was very hard to see this, but you had to have the vision that your Skull of the Minar was going to pull out your Doomguard, which then would attack the face and then get cubed and then Dark Pacted That's like 3 new cards and then a card that has never been played in Control Warlock, all coming together, but it turned out to be a really good deck. 5 stars, pre and post patch.
Arcane Tyrant. Wow, this is a really strong card. A potential 0 mana 4/4. In quite a few decks, that's very realistic. Big Druid, Jade Druid, big Mage, big Spell Mage. So I'm going to give this one a 5-star rating.
This card was run in Jade Druid sometimes, and it was run in Big Spell Mage sometimes. Enough pre-patch to call it a 4-star card. Post-patch goes down to a 3-star card.
Spiteful Summoner. This one is kind of my reach one. I think this is a 4-star card. Arguably 5, and I think it belongs specifically in the Zoo deck, which is running Doom. It's Kalento's idea, so I really like it. That means on 6 mana, you're getting 4/4 and a Ren and Tem drop.
So this one I did rate much higher than other people for all the wrong reasons. I thought it was going to be specifically with Zoo and Doom. Actually defines the Spiteful Priest deck. Even good enough to run in a variety of decks, such as even Druid with the Spiteful Summoner and the Ultimate Infestation. Even occasionally in Zoo, see the Hunters with Call of the Wilds every so often too. So 5-star card, pre-patch and post-patch.
Hungry Etten. A lot of stats, but still just a 1-star card. Kind of vanilla for just 6.
That one sucked, 1 star.
The opponent gets is generally going to be good enough to offset the stats on the Hungry Etten. Silver Vanguard. 7 mana, 3/3. There wasn't anything too imbalanced with the 8 drops. I don't really see any combo effects here. 1 star.
Yep, 1 star.
Corridor Creeper. This one is worth considering just because
Worth considering.
anything that could be a 0 mana 5/5 or 1 mana, 2 mana, 3 mana 5/5. That's worth considering, but it's a really bad top deck, and it's a card you don't really want to keep in your hand anyways. Seems unlikely I'm going to give it 1 star.
It is a really bad top deck, so I had that right. But keeping it in your hand turned out to be really good. Because everyone was playing with patches, so, well, a lot of people were playing patches decks, and you always play Corridor Creeper in your decks with patches. So if you just had a patches effect and you kept Corridor Creeper in your hand, it's already a 5 mana 5/5. 3 mana 5/5s aren't as bad as I thought. Basically, I didn't have the vision to do simple math and see like, okay, you have your pirate, it summons patches, and then you trade your pirate and your patches into one opponent's minion, and you keep the Corridor Creeper in your hand. That's already a 4 mana 5/5. But more often it was going to be that they would have patches and you would have patches, and then these would trade off, and that's a 4 discount. It's 3 mana 5/5, play something else, and then it trades against something else, and that's a 1 mana 5/5. It was really good. This, if reviewed correctly, is actually a 6-star card, and I can actually say it's a 6-star card because it was so good that it got a massive nerf. You saw it in every single deck. It warped the meta. Even after the massive 3 attack nerf to a card, post-patch, it's still 2 stars because it does see fringe amounts of play, notably in Evolved Shaman, where you play it at a discount, and it does still retain the 7 mana cost, so you can evolve it.
Violet Worm, it's really, really slow, and it compares like a Nixia. It's a really good card for value to bring back with N'Zoth, but it's just too slow. 1 star.
1 star there.
Marin the Fox, who've actually had a decent amount of time to practice our marining. Based off of the amount of play, it's safe to say at this point that it's a 1-star card.
Marin's a 1.
King Togwoggle. This is a pure meme card. You can kill your opponent in pretty interesting ways with milling the ransom, but that's way too much work. 1 star.
Good meme card. 1 star though.
Grand Archivist. This one I'm seeing in specifically some sort of hunter deck, perhaps, running exactly Call of the Wild. And that's kind of a dodgy proposition. I don't have much faith in that. I'm going to just give Grand Archivist a 2-star rating.
I didn't have the imagination to see that even if your Grand Archivist cast Free from Amber and it was a random result, that would still be good enough. And I somehow didn't have the vision to see that Mind Control was an excellent Spiteful Summoner card and also a good Grand Archivist target. So that's where you mainly see it. Grand Archivist is run as a 1-of in that deck, so that alone wouldn't necessarily give it a 5-star rating, although it does help define the deck. But I will bump it to a 5-star pre and post patch as well, because it's also run in other Spiteful Summoner variants.
Sleepy Dragon is a 9 mana 4/12 with Taunt. Worse than Ysera, since Ysera kind of is threatening enough to have Taunt, but better in some case, in the case of like it fits into Recruit Warrior. since you need to get that big taunt. Ultimately, most of the time there are better options though. So Sleepy Dragon is a 1-star.
Well, I called it. It was actually played in Recruit Warrior, and Recruit Warrior is a pretty bad deck, but it turns out that the entire deck came together into a tier 4 deck, and Sleepy Dragon is in it. 2-star card.
Master Oakheart. I think this is one of the most exciting cards in the set, with the ability to cheat out an incredibly large amount of mana, drawing and playing a 1-attack minion. That could be Tark Reaper. 2 cost, you're getting the Homunculus. That's a 2 cost. The 3 attack, you could be getting Void Lord, and that's like 9 mana. So therefore, you could be getting something along the lines of a 12 mana savings. And getting 12 extra mana is a really big deal. It implied that the card that cost 9 mana was worth something like 20 plus mana. That reminds me of Ultimate Infestation. It's much faster in value than Ultimate Infestation, since all the cards you draw are immediately put into play. So I'm seeing a Master Oakheart control Warlock deck.
How could I see a Master Oakheart control Warlock deck, but not see a Possessed Lackey control Warlock deck, is what I want to know. And the answer is because I couldn't see a control Warlock deck be played where you only ran Void Lord as the demon, and certainly not the one with the Doom Guard too. Hopefully in the future I'll be able to see these more optimistic options. So Master Oakheart, 2-star for having seen experimentation here and there, pre-patch and post-patch. Nowhere near the levels of Possessed Lackey.
You can also Master Oakheart the Dragon Hatcher, but I think that's much more of a meme and much more unlikely to be successful. Boy, do I not want to fill my deck with 2 Dragon Hatchers for redundancy, or even 1 and try to get lucky with exactly 1 Master Oakheart. So, 1-star card.
So you do actually end up getting the Dragon Hatcher in your Recruit Warrior deck. Sometimes you get the Dragon Hatcher, and then it hatches a Sleepy Dragon. That's pretty good. 2 stars. Sees play in that deck very lightly.
I'm just not really seeing...
Speaking of which, sometimes you Oakheart your Dragon Hatcher after all, too.
And that is a review complete.
Now, notably, I did more generously give cards that were bad a bigger leeway here to fit into the 2-star category, so I could differentiate 1-star and 2-star more. But there are only 64 1-star cards in this expansion, which is actually pretty exceptional. Some of the 1-star cards here are great memes, and they are also just almost deceptively good too. And there were some really, really strong cards in this expansion.